So you are my first video guest. So thank you for setting this up. Now it's time to talk horror, and my guest today is Aid from Slashers Podcast. So Aid, is there anything you want to tell the audience about what you're working on?
Oh, okay. So I am a co-host of Slashers podcast with Mikey and Lance. So if you'd like to give us a follow, you can follow us on Instagram at Slashers Pod. Check out our link tree there and give us a follow if you'd like to give our page a follow. And we also have another page called Mutant Goons from Beyond, where we just kind of share a lot of, off the wall kinds of things that we're into. But yeah, right now, so that's really my only project as of now. We were filming a short, or we were filming a short in LA over last February. So I guess the anniversary, 1 year anniversary is coming up. Noelia with Mikey and his production crew, and that is on hold for now. But if you'd like to see me in anything, Doug has filmed a cinematic masterpiece titled Trash Juice that you can stream on Tubi. So go ahead and give that a follow if you want as well. So, but yeah, that's about it. We talk all things horror media, anything from films, books, video games. The guys do a YouTube special called The Comic Chop. And I'm not saying I don't like comic books, but I don't like comic books. So the boys do that. And that's a YouTube exclusive. So if you follow us on YouTube, you can check that out. And we do that with our buddy Joe over at Much Ado About Nerding. So I know I just plugged a lot of things, but please feel free to give us a follow.
No,
And go to,
you guys are very busy. You guys do a lot, and you guys are really awesome at what you do. And it's like whenever I watch, because I have been listening to your podcast, and you guys have some really in-depth knowledge on the different movies and like the directors, the actors, actresses, all of that. So very knowledgeable. All right, so we are talking about Bride of Reanimator. And last week I did Bride of Frankenstein. So I'm kind of like using those two for comparison. And I like sent you the notes and I have it kind of broken down into themes. The first theme that I have on my list is creationism versus evolution.
Mhm.
Um, I really love Wes, just like very altruistic, nihilistic outlook on life. I think he's a really funny character in that regard. And he has some of the best quotes. Like when he says, uh, whenever, what's her name? The the girlfriend, the new girlfriend.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, the Peruvian girl. Yes.
yes. Francesca, is that her name? I'm looking at my notes.
I have yeah, Francesca.
Yeah, Francesca. So whenever Francesca is like, this is blasphemy, he says blasphemy to who? Your God, and he goes through this whole thing about how miserable humanity is and how God doesn't even like what he's created and all this stuff. And I thought it was a really good piece of dialogue. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I think that, well, West is so Jeffrey Combs playing him, I think
Mhm.
it really adds to the character
Yeah.
because yes, these are great lines. However, the way he delivers them and just how his voice carries it and his mannerisms, his facial expressions,
Mhm.
obviously, like Jeffrey Combs kills it every time.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's the 40th anniversary coming up for part one, or it's already happened.
Mhm.
And a lot of my friends got to see them in LA because all three of them were there with Barbara Crampton, who sadly, unfortunately, did not return to this one.
Yeah.
And I know. I do love him and I do love the character. I thought that that was probably the most powerful speech in the film because
Mhm.
after that, even though it's batshit crazy,
Yeah.
it is so sad. Like I was getting so upset. And so I know we'll talk about that when we get to it, but I just
Mhm.
think that I think it was a really good precursor because for a movie that doesn't seem to take itself very seriously, that was a very serious moment.
Yeah. No, it was a very serious moment. And for like, I'm sure you've seen Bride of Frankenstein.
Of course, yes. I
Yeah.
have her on my arm.
Ah, okay, yes. So so like he's like the Dr. Pretorius
Mhm.
for to like the Bride of Frankenstein to the Bride of Reanimator. I mean, he makes some other really like kind of uh, important comments too about like the iguana. So I wasn't sure why the hell he took that iguana with him from Peru whenever they were in the war zone. And he took it with him back. And it didn't really make any sense at that point that he was like so attached to this iguana, but then it made more sense later whenever he kind of suffocated it with that gas that made it like it simulated a heart attack. And like because he wanted to have the least amount of tissue damage. Um, and then he took the fluid, the amniotic fluid out of the sac. And he was
Mm.
commenting about how the iguana hasn't changed or it hasn't had any significant um, changes in its biology for like he said 100 million years, but I looked it up because I was like, is this actually has it been 100 million years? And it's like, no, it's been like 10 million years, but still, like it
Hmm.
is like reptiles have changed very little in a very long amount of time.
Hmm.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot to the film, and I wonder because I did not read H.P. Lovecraft's novel.
Me
Was it?
neither.
It's Herbert West Reanimator, right? I've
Hmm.
not read it. I'm not a big fan of his writing, so to speak. I like the imagery and I like, I like the premise of the stories, but as far as reading him, it's a little bit of a difficult read. And
Hmm.
so I did not read it. So I wonder how much of this is taken from the novel, the source material. I wonder how much is taken from, just actual fact or is just somebody, just spit and shit they remembered from school. I don't know. So,
Hmm.
not to say that that wouldn't be true, but
Yeah.
there was a lot to this one. I thought that kind of, I don't know if it expanded on Reanimator, but the whole thing with a lot more going on with the animals in this one than
Hmm.
its predecessor, because I want to say it was just the cat that he killed, right? So.
Yeah.
Okay. And now we have the cat, and the dog died, not of his fault. And, so if you're one of those that, spoiler, the dog does die. So, just remember that was so sad. I mean, he comes back, so I don't
Yeah.
know if that matters, but,
He dies in the most brutal way too. Like the cop is swinging him around and then
Mhm.
his leg comes off. Like that. It was just so silly the way that
Yeah.
that whole scene played out. It was very funny.
Yeah, and you can clearly tell it's a stuffed animal, so it's not like it was really that upset. I mean, it was still upsetting for me because anytime a dog dies, I'm upset. But you know, like when he's carrying around the arm, then he puts the arm in his mouth to go with his arm. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is going on? It's so stupid, but it was good. And and that's what I think. I love a good horror comedy because I have never watched this one all the way through. I've
Hmm.
I've always seen the beginning and I've never seen it all the way through. And then when you wanted to do it, I was like, what, actually, let's do that because now I have an excuse to watch it all the way through. Because, it's hard for me, it was hard to get into it without Barbara Crampton. So I'm glad I did watch it because I think the ending is so much better than the beginning. And I mean, I know you want to get to that at some point. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, Barbara Crampton wasn't like as essential of a piece. Like I liked her character in the first one, but really I was there for Herbert West.
hmm.
And so as long as he's in the movie, I'm still watching.
Yeah. Yeah, he's great. I love him. And I'm not saying that her character was the epitome, but the
Mhm.
storyline at the end would stand to reason that they would reanimate her, you know.
Yeah. No, I would think that well, I thought she was reanimated. But I guess there's some scene I didn't see because I heard it covered on a different podcast, and they were saying that she dies shortly after. Like she gets reanimated, but something happens to her that's really grotesque and like over the top. And so she doesn't actually make it. But the version that I watched, all you can hear is her screaming and then that's it.
And it's over. Yeah, I don't think I've seen another. I'm sure we could probably look it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
And didn't Wes die? I thought he died. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. I I used to, maybe I don't know. Anyways,
I
I'm
thought he
probably
died after this one, but
well, yeah, there's a third. And
yeah,
I have that one too. I still haven't watched it because I'm like, I didn't even know. Like I
yeah.
didn't even know.
It's actually because I'm di doing such like deep dives into the Reanimator like universe. I did
Hmm.
watch Beyond Reanimator, and it's really good as well. It has its own quirks, and if anything, it kind of goes back to its the roots within the first Reanimator and him exploring science and uh it's definitely worth a watch.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean I have it, I'll watch it. I just think because I think in around that time too, because that was what, early 2000s. Jeffrey
Hmm.
Combs was doing cameos in House on a Haunted Hill and what's the other one? Oh, House on Haunted Hill Part Two. I'm like, what's the other one? Part Two. And a couple of other things that he was in, especially in the early 2000s. I think it was like his time to like come back. But
Yeah.
it's hard looking him up because he doesn't have a social media presence, as Barbara Crampton loves to tell everybody. So
No.
it's like, unless you're looking for it, you don't know what he's doing. And so, I mean, anything that he's in, I think I'm happy to see him. So
Yeah.
I'll definitely give that one a watch.
Um, Kind of on the like on the creationism versus evolution theme within the movie, I thought it was really hilarious when Wes says, "My God, they're using tools."
Hmm.
Like his zombies that he created are like getting smarter, they're evolving. So I thought
Hmm.
that was a really funny comment. And then when he says, well, when all the creatures that he's made are like starting to come out of the wall, and he like scolds them like they're his children. He's like, can't remember exactly what he says, but he's like, "What are you doing? Get back in there," type of thing. It was really funny.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because it's the same sort of, uh, I guess, an opposite tone of what Victor Frankenstein would do, right? Because Victor runs away from his creation, and then we have
Hmm.
West sort of trying to uh, harness them and get them in line, which I find funny. And the only one that really seems to not have, which I find hilarious, to not have any kind of like super brain damage is the head, right?
Hmm.
What's his name? Why can't I think of his name? Um, and so
Hill,
yeah,
Dr.
Dr.
Hill.
Hill.
Hmm.
And so, but he's the only one who still seems to sort of have his faculties or his wits about him. Like he's not as delayed, I think, as the rest of them, which I find interesting. So,
I think
um,
it's because he was supposed to be a doctor. He's supposed to have this like extraordinary intelligence, right? So,
mhm,
unlike the average person that would become reanimated, he had these psychic powers in the first one that kind of went into the second one as well.
mhm.
I don't think they did enough with him in this movie. That I, in the end, he appears a lot more, but when he kind of shows up in the beginning and then throughout like the first probably hour of the film, you're like, what is happening with Dr. Hill? Why is he here? What is he doing? Um,
Well, supposedly they were supposed to have scenes with him in the sideshow, right? And like,
mhm.
get it. What does they say? Get a job in a sideshow.
Yeah.
And they filmed, and I know they filmed it because I was looking at that, but they never
Mhm.
used it. So,
Yeah.
I, and Brian Yuzna even says, there's a lot that he wished he would have done differently because they did a whole segment on this film on the In Search of Darkness, 1990 to 1994. So if you have not seen that one yet, I would definitely highly recommend renting it because it is so good and there's so many great movies on there, and this being one of them. And
I'm glad that they did this plot though, because it makes so much sense with it being a parody of Frankenstein to do Bride of Frankenstein next, I
mhm.
think. And I'm glad that they did it because just the ending sequence of this movie alone is worth the whole watch because it's so insane.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so the next little theme I had in here was the hubris of science. Like Herbert West's obsession with reanimation pushes him beyond any ethical boundaries. He really doesn't care about life or death. He cares about controlling it. But he doesn't care if someone lives or actually dies. Um, and his emphasis on tissue damage, so and how fresh a corpse is
Hmm.
always it always kind of like makes me laugh when he makes those remarks. But him even coming up with like whatever that liquid was supposed to be that make like simulates the heart attack, which I was also confused because that shit seemed to be getting everywhere. And I'm like, how is it not killing everyone?
He mentioned something about it, and I don't know why I just recall. I remember him saying something about it having to be a specific way or some, I don't know. Because when I was watching it, I was thinking that's so I don't know what the heck, but I remember hearing that something about that. But I know he mentions it. I don't quite recall exactly what he says. Because I just basically when I rewatched it, I was like, I always see the beginning,
Hmm.
and they're in the nurse and then they get in the house and there's all
Hmm.
this hullabaloo happening. Like I always see that part. And then,
Yeah.
George Jefferson's brother is on there at some point. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? And and I'm just like, okay. So like let's just get through this part because I want to see I had not watched The Bride get there yet. And also I didn't want to see the dog die. I think that was probably why I was like, I can't do
Yeah. Talking about animals and their death, I think the saddest scene for me was the bat. When
it.
the other doctor reanimates the bat on accident, he doesn't know what he's doing. Um, and then the bat is like, it's attacking him, but the way that he cuts those bat's wings off, it's so sad.
He has more of a regard for science and what he can do with it.
Hmm.
And that's his purpose, right? I don't necessarily because there are times to go back to what you said earlier, there are times where I feel his empathy for Dan because I think I really consider that he thinks that Dan is probably the only person in his life that's going to be anything to him because Dan
Yeah.
puts up with his shit, right? Like
Yeah.
if all of that happened, I don't know why the hell they stayed friends and why the hell they're still hanging out. I would never.
It's a
Espe-
very codependent relationship.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. But I think he does because there are glimpses of normalcy with him, and I think now a lot of people would say that he's kind of on the spectrum, right? And
Hmm.
I feel like there are glimpses of normalcy and glimpses of, him being trying to be empathetic. But at the end of the day, what does he care about most is what he can create, right? So I don't know. I think that falls under the more of the hubris as well because he doesn't seem to care when Catherine or Kathleen Kinmont dies. What's her name in the movie? I don't know. The bride, I guess.
Yeah. I don't even think they give her a name because I remember her in the hospital when she was sick, but um what's it? Dan, like he even tells her in the hospital, he's like, you remind me of um my like Barbara, but that's not her name in the movie. Yeah, but he was like, you remind me of Meg. And then as soon as he said that, that's like right when she dies, which is
Hmm.
kind of parallel to his real Meg. And it shows like that's one of the other themes that I had in here was grief and moving on. Like Dan is obviously not over Meg. Um, he
No.
accepts all kinds of things that I don't think he would normally just because he wants to bring Meg back, or at least her heart
Hmm.
back.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that at least I kind of feel that's probably why he stayed close with Wes as well, because he can't seem to let her go.
Yeah.
And as a result, I feel that's a result of how heartbreaking the ending of this film is because it
Mhm.
really I was crying and I'm like, this is a lot. And I think it's the same sort of heartbreak you feel, they wanted to emulate with Bride of Frankenstein, right? Like the
Mhm.
juxtaposition of both films.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's not a happy ending. And
No.
so, even though this is considered, somewhat of a comedy or dark comedy or horror comedy, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
the ending is not a fun ending. So,
Mm-mm.
um, just anyways, so yeah, moving on. And I don't think to piggyback on what you said, West also can't move on, and he can't accept anything either because he can't accept his work not working, for
Yeah,
lack of a
he
better
can't
word.
accept failure. He has to keep moving on,
Yeah.
moving forward, and trying to improve, do better. Um, I did find it interesting the juxtaposition between uh like Bride of Frankenstein and Bride of Reanimator. They both had emphasis on the heart. So the heart was the reason why
Hmm.
they couldn't get the bride to to come alive. I guess they call it reanimate too. Um, and so he like sends out his henchmen to go get a fresh heart, like as if an accident always
So yeah,
happened.
I did notice that about the heart. Um, and I thought it was interesting because I was just thinking as you're saying that, I wonder if it was a man. And I feel like they do this with Frankenstein as well, that there's like an emphasis on the brain, right? Whereas women, they have this inherent thought that, it needs to be internal and more emotional, right? And I roll my
Yeah.
eyes. I know people can't see me, but my eyes are rolling. So I'm when it's also, there's a lot of feminist themes in this as well. I don't know if you have this on here. Um, because she is a woman, because men are bringing them back, right? And men are the creators, God is a man, and
Hmm.
became first, and all that bullshit. So
Yeah.
I don't, sorry, not bullshit. It's a story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're good. I'm an atheist, so you're not going to offend
I'm,
me.
I'm like, just in case. So, but yeah, no, I think that's really sad. And I don't think it's just Dan who is grieving. I think when they reanimate our bride, her heart is broken.
Hmm.
And it's the same, and it's the kind of the same feeling you get when you read Frankenstein and he abandons his creature and the creature's feelings throughout, just feeling, you made me. And then, 'cause she keeps saying that, and
Yeah.
that's the thing. You made me, but you don't want me because you don't want my body. And he says to her, I just don't want your body. And I'm
Hmm.
like, what the fuck? I was like,
Yeah. I mean, so we can totally go to the whole theme of just like social rejection. And even so, Dan is really brutal to her whenever he finally like gets out of that trance. Like Francesca goes to him and she's like, "Who is this?" And
mhm.
he's like, "It's Meg." And she tells him, like, "That's not Meg. Meg is dead." And that, like, I don't know, like breaks his trance and he kind of comes back to reality in that moment. And then that's when he starts rejecting this bride that he created. And he wanted to, like, he made a point to be the one that actually injected her and
Mhm.
everything. Um, and yeah, he's pushing her away. It's really sad. And she just keeps wanting to know what am I here for? Why did you make me?
Yeah.
And he never has a good reason. He never tells her. She just ends up her body tissue rejection, right?
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And inherently she destroys herself, right?
I will tell you, Francesca pissed me off too
Yeah.
when it came to her dog. She did not give a shit. Like she stayed there. This guy just murders your dog, and you're just going to hang out. You're going to spend the night in the house where your dog was murdered. Like, and then she saw that they were doing fucked up shit. She was just I don't know. It was that whole like I have a theme in there like called Love is Blind. So,
Yeah, let's
but
go to that. Yeah.
yeah, let's
Okay.
go to that theme.
Because we need to talk about her because I had some issues with her. So,
Yeah, me too. I did too. It was like, are you a strong, independent woman or are you just like, I don't know what the fuck you are? Like, yeah.
and
So you tell me your take first.
so as a woman, okay, and I don't take this the wrong way or me being shallow kind of person. If I walked into that hovel he lived in and saw how he lived, I'm
Oh my
not having
God.
sex with anybody in that house. I'm sorry. Now, you can come to my
The
place,
couch had all kinds of rips.
get blood on his shoes.
Yeah.
Girl, he had blood on his shoes. Like, I'm sorry, but no, this is not college. This is not, we're all just fucking around and everybody's kind of grimy, right? When you're 18,
Yeah.
19 years old. Like, no, we're grown adults. He's a
Hmm.
doctor and look where he's
Right. Yes.
living. Look where he's
Exactly.
living.
I would expect like you're going to visit your doctor boyfriend or like your love interest that's a doctor. I would be so like I would have turned around at those doorsteps. Seeing how close, like I like cemeteries, but I'm sorry, you're living on top of the cemetery? No, thank you.
And even, okay, the cemetery is not the problem. It's just, well, yeah, that would have been a little weird. But at the end of the day, she has her own place. Like, why would you just invite him over? Why are you going to?
Yeah.
And then even after all that, she's like, I'm going to cook for you in your nasty house. Okay, that's nice. And then I'm going to sleep with you.
Hmm.
And then well, I brought my dog for some reason. So she
Yeah.
knew she was going to stay the night. What a bitch.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, and which is fine. I don't care. Like, yeah, I would totally, like, he's cute. Yeah, and he's a doctor. I would totally hook up with him, but not in the house. Like,
The next morning when she wakes up and she hears her dog, I will just leave it there and tell me what you think about that scene.
well, I mean, I don't think so. I know this is like the plot, right? So she has to hear the dog and, she falls asleep on the couch with Dan. Oh my God. Like at that point, I would have left.
Yep,
I would have gone
me
home
too.
or taken him with me and then just gone. And so I just don't think, and Francesca, the entire time, she just doesn't have and I don't know if it's intentional that she's supposed to be the quote dumb blonde, but like she's very pretty. She's got prospects. Like there's no issues for her to just move on.
Hmm.
And with the cop on her ass about him and everything, you would think that she would think twice.
Yeah, okay. So I definitely have a comment about that, about how he brings her into the psych ward or whatever part of the hospital that is. And she's literally attacked by these zombie creatures. The cop is telling her, like, warning her, like, oh, I don't even have this. Sorry.
You're fine.
The cop is warning her that um, Dan and West are the ones who created these things. And she just like, it doesn't even faze her. Like she's freaked out whenever the zombies are attacking her, but she doesn't like, she doesn't process anything that he told her.
Hmm. And I kind of feel like I don't know if we're supposed to compare both the living and the living woman to the bride at this point because even though she is alive, her problem solving skills are just not there. Her instinct to stay alive is just not there I mean she can't even fight the bride at this point. And the only thing she's worried about is Dan. And Dan is not, for those of you who haven't seen it or haven't seen Reanimator in a while, Dan is not the same character he was in part one. He's a broken
No.
man. He's callous. He has one track mind, and Wes knows that. Oh, I have Meg's heart. I'm gonna make sure I use that to my advantage to keep Dan around because I need help. And
Hmm.
Dan just goes for it instead of being like, okay, fuck you, I gotta go. And I just think that that plays a role in his inability to feel empathy even for Francesca, because yes, what is the one thing he say to her when they wake up in the morning or when he's sleeping with her? How beautiful she is, right? That's his comment.
Yeah, and doesn't he say something about how soft her skin is and stuff? He makes some weird comments about her skin.
Yeah, and I think it's more of him kind of internalizing and maybe in the back of his mind thinking, what if we used her body for mental?
Yeah, right. It's
Yeah.
almost like that's the whole emphasis on the body parts and how they're reanimating body parts. And um, when when Dan says, like, especially that little creature with all the fingers and then the eye,
Hmm.
and he's like, "What are you doing here? Like, we're not trying to bring back, just random body parts. We're trying to bring back people." And Wes says, "Well, what are people aside from a collection of body parts?" So,
Yeah. And for West to say that that's on point for him because I don't think West has a the ability to view life the way we view life like other people would, right? Because he's very linear. He's very, he's very to the point. And I don't think he himself, he doesn't have regard for his own self, right? Because
mhm,
if he did, like he puts himself in all these precarious situations as well. It's not like he knows the danger that he's in, but he doesn't care. He's got to
mhm,
finish it. He'll stay in the danger until his work is done. And so the love is blind aspect, I think it goes for Francesca personally, I think, because
mhm.
she sees all this bullshit and she doesn't care.
Yeah. Like even after, so the next day, she, wakes up, she hears her dog, she goes downstairs, and then her dog like grabs her with a hand, with a human hand. Like, and
That was great.
then she's still like, at least she runs out then. But the fact that she comes back after that, I'm like, what the
She needs
fuck?
to save him. She has to save him. And why? But why? What are we saving? What your dog is dead.
Mhm,
He didn't even clean up for you, knowing you're coming over. Like, come on now. Girl, these are red flags. And it's like, we say, okay, how many red flags does it take? Because, sometimes the guy's just so cute. But at this point, I know it's the 80s. Let's move on. Or no, it's actually not the 80s, it's the
yeah,
90s. We're in the
it
90s,
is the
girl.
90s.
It's the 90s. We need to go in with this with the 90s mindset. We're done with
Okay.
fuckboys. Let's move on.
Yeah. Oh, so two more things I want to mention really quick that I noticed that she like kind of endured and she still stuck around was like the fucking nub in her mouth. The nub,
Mm.
like the
Oh
cop's
my
nub.
God.
She still goes back to the house when she gets the nub in her mouth. It's so disgusting.
When that when that happened, that's when my boyfriend walks in and he's like, ew, because he hates all the shit I watch, and he walks out, and I'm like, I'm
It's
like, are you
so
surprised?
nasty. It's
And-
so gross.
but it's a violation, though, right? This is like a total metaphor of a male violating a woman, right? And
Hmm.
penetrating her in some way.
Yes.
And that is I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know what would be worse, having a bloody stump in my mouth, or you know what I mean? It's like, oh, what the fuck? Like, I don't know. So
It was really grotesque. I'm just like, what the actual hell? Um, and uh, I was just like baffled whenever she like went to go check on him in the hospital and Dan had left because the patient died. And the nurse tells her, Francesca, well, he left because he was really distraught. His patient died. I've never known a doctor who cares so much. And Francesca's just like, oh, yes, he does. He does care so much. It's like, no, bitch. You saw all the mad science he was doing in his house. Like, how are you still convinced that this guy is good?
yeah, and I think that carries on too of like of because this a man wrote this, right? So
Yeah.
we have to put in a line. I don't know if this is just trying to be ironic or funny, or if it's just playing on what, oh well, she's like, oh, her heart is like oh my God, he's so sensitive. And, let's just run to his rescue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, is that, and that's the thing. I don't think that, like, I kind of got mad when she started fighting with our bride too,
Mm-hmm.
because she she took Dan's side, and as a woman, me seeing what they did to her,
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Oh, girl, we gotta go. Fuck these guys." Like, I would be like, "Let's go. You can come live with me."
Well, I guess just like all the body horror. I just wanted to talk about all the creatures that Wes was making. I feel like in this movie, he kind of loses his purpose a little bit when it comes to the science part. He's kind of like in a pigeonhole with it. And he just starts making all these creatures out of boredom almost. Like whenever he puts the hand and the foot together, and
Hmm.
he just like he looks at body parts and he's like, oh, he's like a kid that's like, oh, I could put those together.
Yeah. And especially a lot of the effects and a lot of the some of the creatures, I guess you want to say, or
Hmm.
zombies, or whatever you want to call them. Screaming Mad George was responsible for creating a lot of them.
Hmm.
And of course, Brian Yuzna, the king of body horror over here. And him doing effects from Reanimator, directing this one, I felt so many homage to society here with
Hmm.
these. And so again, is this the source material or is this something that we want to see? The body horror for me was the best because
Hmm.
just seeing all these creatures, Reanimator touches on it, and then we get Bride of Reanimator, and we just get everything thrown at us. And I
Yeah.
think yes, it plays the theme that West is just completely unhinged at the point where yes, he's bored. He knows he can do this. He wants to see what it does. But yeah, so with the body horror, I think that was a great touch. And I also think that, looking at it from the character's point of view, that West is being West. Like he can do it. Why not? You know?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, like I felt like the emphasis on this movie was less on the storyline and more on the gore and the special effects and the practicals and all of that. And it's worth it just for that. Like the little
Hmm.
hand thing, I felt so bad for it when it got squished by the
Hmm.
book. I was like, oh, they
Yeah,
killed the thing.
and you're supposed to feel badly though, right? I mean, for me, reading Frankenstein and just with all of these elements of creating something that you ultimately hate because you don't like how it looks, even though you
Hmm.
created it,
Yeah.
is just so heartbreaking. And
Yeah.
I think we're meant to feel empathy for these reanimated like they're not objects, I mean body parts, I should say. And
Hmm.
then once we get to the piece de resistance behind me with the bride and everything that she has to endure.
Hmm.
And I feel like all of these body parts, all these things, they do feel pain and they are sentient, right? So it's
Hmm.
just, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what to say about that, which the underlying theme of that is much darker than what the movie portrays, I think. And so if we're looking at it at face value, we can have fun with this. But if
Yeah.
you're actually thinking about it, it's not so fun.
Well, yeah, and I mean it feeds into the queer coding and just like the it is a it's almost like it's speaking on societal norms and what we accept and what we reject as a society. And that message is still prevalent today with the way that trans people are being treated right now and all that like legislation happening that's taking away rights for all kinds of people who are disenfranchised anyway. So
Hmm.
the I find the message of this movie and the rejection, it's a really important one.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And it's a heartbreaking one. So like I highly recommend getting to the end of this one. And
Hmm.
but I don't think a lot of people are going to be happy with the ending as far as the tone goes, but the effects are amazing. And like I said,
Yeah.
Screaming Mad Georgia alone letting himself to such a you know we don't know what was going to happen with this one. Like we had to pump this one out. We had to get it going. You know,
Mhm.
it was expected to happen. And we go from Stuart Gordon to Brian Yesna now. And it's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And the fact, you know, I know you want to talk about this before, we don't have a lot of time, but maybe we should move on
Mhm.
to the juxtaposition between the fact that we don't see the titular title of the, you know, title character until like the last, and there's my daughter. The titular title character until the last like what 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
you know, and I know for a fact Brian Yesna was very upset that we didn't have more time with her.
Mhm.
And plus what Kathleen Kidmon has to go through in order to create the suit that she's wearing. And in and of itself is a little fucked up, you know, what
Yeah.
happens to her creating this. And you know, just not being able to see everything she can do. And
Mhm.
what she does do is just amazing. And so it's like, well, you know, because even it like, so we see her a little bit dying in the beginning, but even like with Bride of Frankenstein, you know, I know that Elsa Lanchester, she's playing Mary Shelley at the beginning. So
Yeah.
we get to have some time with the actress, but we
Mhm.
don't really have time with the bride. And like, I find that such a disservice, but at the same time, it's so poetic because
Mhm.
we're only here for a fleeting moment and then we're gone. And so I don't know. I don't know how you felt about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I liked that she was only there for, I mean, I would have liked for her to be in there more. Don't get me
Mm-hmm.
wrong, but because we're comparing it to, this is a direct parallel to like Bride of Frankenstein. The bride only shows up for like 5 minutes too. So it would have been weird for me to see the bride for longer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just because of that. And I feel when it comes to the bride, it's what she symbolizes, not who she actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting too that you bring up what the actress for the Bride of Reanimator, what she went through, because when I was doing the research for Bride of Frankenstein, she also went through hell, like with all the body wrappings and everything, and like she had to be fed through like a straw, and just the amount of shit that we put these women through is insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to get a little screen time
Yeah.
with them. And it's just and I don't think and I think it's still the same today that women just don't have the I don't think there's anyone looking out for women on set, you know, and or children for that matter, if we're going to get into it. And
Yeah.
so, you know, it's really easy to kind of see what we see. Yes, we see her breasts, and we've already seen them in another movie, and she was with another movie with Barbara Crampton.
hmm
And Barbara Crampton does nudity as well. So the nudity is not the issue for me. The issue
hmm
is the fact that everything she did, she had to do naked, and then she passes out and then wakes up and she's sitting in a chair and like, are you fucking kidding me? Like she has no one's looking out for this woman.
hmm
And it's almost like mimics it on screen. No one's looking out for her when she awakens. And look what happens. So,
Yeah. Yeah, they all turn their back on her. And what does Wes say? He says she's just a collection of discarded parts,
mhm.
I think is
Yeah,
what he says, which is so so poignant. How do you say that word?
poignant.
Poignant, so poignant. Like, yeah, to men, a lot of us women are just a bunch of parts.
hmm
We're just a collection of parts.
We're just the body that they want. And I also found another theme too is that, especially with women, and you could probably speak to this more because you have children. I don't have any, and I don't plan to. But I think that like it's so easy for men to just dismiss you once they've lost their attraction to you, right?
Mhm.
And with women, that happens a lot. We feel, you know, when our bodies are changing and we don't feel the same anymore. And like, how's our partner going to perceive us? And right away,
Mhm.
Dan says to her, I don't want your body. And I think that sort of, as a woman, that just like, ingrains in you because you always have that fear that if you change and our bodies are the ones that are going to change the most. Not that men don't gain weight, but nobody seems to give a fuck what they do.
Yeah.
But like our bodies will change, and we change because we have to, we're having children, we're giving birth, and everything is just different.
Hmm.
And you know, so many women are just rejected, for
Yeah.
someone else, and it's like, what the fuck? Like this is all you wanted me for, and this is all the value that I give to you, right? And that's
Yeah.
why I think her holding the heart is such a
Hmm.
like a powerful image because, you know, this is what you should want.
Yeah.
You should want my heart, but you
Yeah.
don't. So now I'm going to
Yeah.
destroy
Or
it.
like you have my heart and you're breaking my heart because you're an
Hmm.
asshole.
Hmm.
So,
So fuck,
um,
fuck Dan. Moral of the story.
yeah, fuck Dan. He is really like in the first one, you have his character is a lot more sympathetic just because you feel like he's getting lost in everything and it all happens so fast to him. It's almost like it's like, what do I do now? He's like a
Hmm.
lost puppy. But this cat, but this one, I mean, he is obviously grieving, but he's just such a kind of an asshole. He's such an asshole to these women and the way that he treats them and just discards them and it's like, okay.
Yeah. No, and he was, like I said, he's just a very different character. And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with what he went through. But at the same time, it's a reason, it's not an excuse. It's what I always say,
Hmm.
grow the fuck up. And like I said, I do not like Dan in this one. Like I like him in part one. I do not like him in part two.
Yeah.
So, and Wes obviously is the more palatable character. We love him. He hasn't changed. In fact, he's a little more eccentric in this one, and we love him for that. So there you go.
Yeah. His mad science. Oh my God. He's just so funny.
Hmm.
Um, okay. So I think we pretty much covered all the themes at this point, even with all the in interjections and freezing and everything else. I think we got through most of it.
Okay.
Um, I do have a little segment. It's called Caption That. And so I have some pictures, and I just want you to tell me kind of like what would you call this picture? What would you caption this picture? What comes to mind? And I can tell you what I thought. And it's all the creatures from the ending. So like, yeah, if you had
Oh
to
my God.
post this creature, what would you say about it? In like two, three, like 5 words at most.
Okay.
Do you understand the rules?
Yeah, I sort of do. I guess I'm just say picture because I'm being this creative on the fly is getting me nervous now.
I'm sorry. It's okay. It's all right. I promise. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Hmm.
Okay. So we've got caption that Bride of Reanimator version. Okay. What would you caption this one?
Like I didn't know it looked like that.
Yeah. What he looks like. He's like the thing
Well,
almost.
no, he's saying that.
Oh, I
Like
didn't know
he's
you looked like that.
shocked.
Oh, okay. I called it I finger you.
That's cute. His little eyeball.
His little
Mm.
eyeball. And he's got fingers. All right.
Oh my God, this is the doggy.
It's the dog. I'm sorry. I put the dog in there.
Ah. Like, no, I don't want to go to the vet.
Yeah, no, I don't want to go to the vet. What did I say about this one? I think I said uh like give me a hand, like with guarding the house or something. I don't know. I have to look it up
Oh.
later. But yeah, it's sad. I'll go past this picture. All right. What would you caption this?
I feel like it looks like what's his name from The Cure. I don't know. I might look like I have to take a shit, but I don't have an ass. I don't know.
I called
I
it Batman because he's a man with bat
with bat
wings.
wings,
So,
yeah.
he's like the official Batman or like Bat Head.
Yeah. But I kind of like the guy in the back a little bit more. Like I feel like his reaction to the bat head would be more fun. He kind of looks like
Yeah,
Leatherface, doesn't he?
he kind of does look like Leatherface. He really does. All right, so he comes up later. I think, okay, this one's really hard to see because I
I
had to do
cannot see
screen
that.
grabs. Okay, in screen grabs, I'm going to explain the picture. It's the woman and the man that are like, they don't have legs, it's arms, and they're moving around. Do you remember that creature when it shows up?
Yes, I do, but I
It's so hard to see. I
it
know.
is, yeah.
Um, I called this one heads or tails.
Oh my God, that's funny. I like that. Yeah, I don't know what I would say about that one. Well,
It
I was
reminded
across.
me of this creature specifically reminds me of like cat dog.
Yeah, I was about to say something about cat dog too, but I was like, let's keep the Nickelodeon references to the because like for some reason I was thinking of Stick Stickly with the finger eye. But maybe like Hands Across America. This is what it really looks like. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Next one is so Leatherface. Basically, what would you say about this one?
This was a character, remember in Nickelodeon with the foot, and I
That
can't remember
was
what
a
it was called.
character.
Like you're just a foot face. I don't know.
Yeah. A foot face. I called him a dumbstick. Kind of like because he kind of reminded me of a drumstick.
Oh yeah, he does. Yeah. He's
So I
with
said dumbstick.
his little toes. Screaming Mad
Yeah.
George, I believe, I think created that one. So yay.
I wonder if Nickelodeon was like uh an inspiration for these creatures because they really do look like a lot of Nickelodeon creatures.
Well, I think maybe like Nickelodeon could have taken it from them, that's for sure, because we had some
True.
questionable people on staff. So
That is very true. All right, this guy.
so the butt face guy, this is the guy who looks like the character from, or well, we'll call him butt face, but it looks
Butt
like the
face.
character from Society, right?
Yeah, I really love the boob over the shoulder. So that's like a boob over
Like he looks like
there.
he's being birthed, kind of. I don't know.
He does. It's very strange. This
Like
is a
this
very
actor had
strange
too much
creature.
fun.
Yeah, he did. Because then he's like crawling all over West at the end, which is it's awkward, very awkward. All right, this one. Do you remember this one?
Oh, they're doing the Macarena. How cute.
You remember when it like turns around though?
Yeah. And they're like right there. Yeah.
It's so creepy.
It's a good scene, but that picture is pretty funny.
Yeah,
And she kind of looks like a Cenobite there.
she
Right?
does. Actually,
Yeah.
this one really reminded me of Hellraiser.
Hmm.
I called this one I've Got Your Back
Oh, that's cute. I like that.
because they're connected by their backs.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Oh my gosh.
So he's the front, she's the back. Is very interesting creature. I think that was it. That was
Oh,
all my
yes.
creatures.
Yay. We did it.
What else did
That
I
was fun.
call? I feel like I had a better, I want to see what I called them in my notes. Oh, good boy or welcome dog. I called him good boy.
Oh, like no. That's what I
Yeah,
was saying. I was like, no.
he just looks like such a good boy standing next to him. Like it could be his pet.
Oh, bless his heart.
Hmm. If he didn't reject him.
I know. Yeah.
I think we had a lot of really great feminist conversation. That's why I love talking to women about horror.
I never
Like,
have a girl to talk to, so thank you.
yes, no, I'll like talk to men about horror, and I'm just like, I know in one of my episodes I was talking to my husband, and he is like saying some shit, and I was like, I need to talk to more women. This is
Hmm.
not like you don't get it. You did not get it.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's like we all have different opinions. Mikey's gay and Lance is, a man. And so it's
Mhm.
really hard to like it's nice to have all the different varying opinions, but I never really get to talk about feminism and how it feels with another woman. So thank you.
Yeah. If you ever want to talk horror, I'm always here.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
thank you for being on this episode.
Oh,
And
why don't we have you on sometime and then you can see what it's like to be with the rest of the crew. That would be fun.
yeah, no, I would love that. I would love that. And I know I'm going to have Lance, and then I haven't talked to Mikey yet, but I would like to have him on an episode too. So plenty of time for you guys to like reach my audience as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for sure. And yeah, so with Lance, you just have to direct him. So I'm
yeah,
just letting you know, just tell him what to do and he'll be fine.
I can do that. I can do that.
Okay, good.
All right.
All right. Well, thank
Bye.
you.
Of
Bye.
course. Thanks. Bye.